got a feeling this show is going to be a bunch of bullpen talk, which isn't such a bad thing because we've got to talk about the bullpen. It looks like the Rangers may be set there. So what does that mean? We've got the answers as we get started now on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Said our bullpen pieces are on the floor, and frankly, we're starting to believe him. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. John Radigan, Rad's here with J-Dub. That's Jeff Wilson. Prophet is still out today, so the nickname Tequila is sticking, I think. We've got Tequila.
Okay.
Over there.
Yeah.
He referred to himself as Tequila.
I still like Black Sheep, but we'll go with Tequila.
Yeah, the Black Sheep. He's the black sheep of
our
little family,
that's right.
Our little DLLS family. We are all one family, and we know you are, any of you are all people who watch our other shows too. We appreciate that. And John Anderson, it is actually Tequila. He's normally the producer of the Stars show with Luds and all his cohorts over there. So anyway, we're glad to have him. We're glad to have you. Like us, subscribe to us if you haven't yet, and chat with us throughout the course of the next hour. It's the final lunch hour of the week and the final chance we'll have to talk to you until next week. And we do start with this bullpen, Jeff, because it now becomes the serious work. And for everybody, obviously the real work begins in a little under 2 weeks, but figuring out who goes where. And I guess for us right now, it's speculation, but we try to make educated guesses and base it on experience and things like that to see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, it will be interesting because, again, just you look at the last 2 years and the importance of the bullpen. The Rangers really should have won the division, should have won 100 games in 2023.
Yep.
If the bullpen had just been good.
Right.
It wasn't right. It was so bad.
And it was historically bad.
Yeah.
It was historically bad.
Yeah. Now, of course, they came around. And before we go any further, Justin Grounds, I saw you just drop in here. Were you the one who wanted the Do It for Dirt hat? If so, respond and hit me up on DM on Twitter because I got one for you. All right. Moving on.
Beautiful.
But back to the bullpen. And then this year, they would have been awful if not for the bullpen. So I mean, you need the bullpen. The bullpen. You need it to be good. And I'm not saying that the 5 guys that they've added aren't good, because they are. You look at their numbers. Now, a couple of them are coming off of seasons that probably could have been better. One of them's real young in Robert Garcia. Chris Martin never really been a closer. But my gosh, the guy is really good.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's talent there, and this is on top of with Jacob Webb, who everybody loves, especially at the price he came. So you have that 5, that quintet, and then Josh Sborz will be back at some point in June or July. They have arms in the minors who are developing, and big power arms too, not just 91, 92, we're talking 100, 102. So there are guys who can fill the void that appears to be at closer, because Kirby Yates is off the board, Tommy Kahnle is off the board, Carlos Estevez is the big one off the board, Kenley Jansen is still there, not Carlos Estevez, Craig Kimbrell, if you want to go down that take that chance, is out there.
No.
But at some point, it just seems like, and especially these prices that have come out,
Right.
It's like 11 million. Gosh, it seems like the Rangers could have done that, unless they're right up against it. More than we know. So, their accounting is what matters the most, not these payroll trackers. So we'll see. We'll see. There's still plenty of time to get one added, no doubt about that. But I don't anticipate it happening at this point. I think at this point it's the last day of January. Spring training starts February 11th or February 12th is the first workout. You got to think that the 5 they have, as Gene Hackman said, my team's on the floor.
Yeah.
When after poor old Ray fouled out and ran his mouth. Or not, Ray didn't foul out, but Ray had been running his mouth and not making the necessary passes, as I recall.
Right.
My team's on the floor. So this Rangers bullpen might be on the floor.
Might be on the floor, and it if it is, there are plenty of candidates. Jacob Webb has expressed confidence in his potential ability to do this job.
Yeah.
And to be honest, at this point, all of us, really, not even at this point, all of us like somebody who wants the ball, right? Now, will he earn that? I don't know. But I like a guy who goes into it going, yeah, give me the ball. I'll be the closer, right?
Sure. And Chris Martin's like, yeah, I mean, I'll just treat it like the 7th or 8th inning.
Sure.
My goal is to put up a 0. Jacob Webb said, it's everybody's goal to be a closer. Yeah, I want to do it.
Yeah.
So, and you don't know. You'll get out there, see what it takes, and sure, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then make a change.
Right.
But every game you lose in April is one less you have to lose in September to miss out on the playoffs. So they count. No doubt about that.
No doubt about that. And it's certainly, a process every year in a bullpen. How many times have we seen it, from the Sean Tollisons of the world to the Sam Dysons of the world to even the Jose Leclerc in the past couple of years of the world, where there's a closer at the start of the year and then very soon into the season, there's a different closer.
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, it's happened the last 2 years. Jose Leclerc has been the closer coming out of spring training. And a few weeks into April, he's lost the job. So, and it, honestly, it did work out. Will Smith worked out for half a year.
He did.
Kirby Yates worked out for a
full year
and had an amazing year. So we'll see what happens. And there, and there was a question from Kelly Mann. What about a trade for one? Always a possibility, especially at the trade deadline. I don't know what the Cardinals are doing with Helsley. He seems to be one of the few that's out there that's available. I guess Suarez from the Padres has been mentioned a few times. So, and you never know what AJ Preller's thinking. And that's not always a good thing. So, but anyway, a possibility for sure. And the Rangers have enough prospects to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, they do. There's also the possibility of trading a player that's on the roster to free up some money.
Yeah.
To sign a free agent, still sign one of these free agents that's out there. Now, again, they're disappearing, as we mentioned. Obviously, Tanner Scott's off the board now too. He and Kirby Yates both with the Dodgers. So there's not that many options out there that are really that exciting to you. But that's certainly a possibility, or it would be a possibility in the trade. If you trade for someone, you may have to clear some salary in order to bring whoever you trade for back, depending on that salary.
But even at this point, it's like, well, here we go. John Gray, all right, $14 million. He's going to go into free agency after this year. Is that the guy you trade? Well, you can't trade him.
No,
unless you've got a starter,
right? You're
going to sign. So it just I don't know really that a trade would matter unless a team is picking up a ton of the contract.
Yep.
There's I think the first question, I think it was Ethan mentioned he's seen some articles about the Yankees trading Marcus Stroman for Josh Smith. Okay, let's just say for a minute that that's true, because these stories are just pure speculation, mock trades. Let's say that that's true. How much would the Yankees have to eat of that salary? I'm thinking pretty much a damn near all of it. Because Josh Smith is a controllable player who still hasn't entered arbitration. So I just can't imagine that that's a possibility. But but let's say all right, okay, maybe it's possible. Okay, it's got to be. I would think the Rangers would have to make another move then. Yeah, it's not feasible. But the point being, the Rangers don't have anybody who makes a ton of money who they could trade. Maybe Leody Taveras.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's
not a ton.
That's
$5
4.5,
million.
5.
Yeah.
Is that enough to get a closer? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and Stroman's on a 2-year, $37 million contract.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is how we go into spring training. But then you see some other things pop up. Hey, Lance Lynn. Teams are looking at Lance Lynn as a closer.
Right, and Lance Lynn has agreed to.
He would do it.
Entertaining the idea of being a closer
to
keep going. And yeah, somebody mentioned Lance earlier in the chat, and we have that in the show for later. But yeah, we can get to that now. I mean, Lance Lynn. Now, you talk about a sort of a mother duck kind of a guy, right? I mean, he took the young guys. When he was here, he took those young guys under his wing, and he took care of them. I mean, he's a really good guy in the room, and so in this case, that would transfer out to the bullpen. I can't even imagine Lance sitting out there for 7, 8, 9 innings a game and being a part of that bullpen. But that'd be really. I mean, it'd be good for somebody. It'd be good for the Rangers.
Yeah, he's had some knee issues, okay, and he's tried to lose some weight this offseason. So that seems like it's going the right way. It's obviously a guy who wants to pitch. If that's his only opportunity, then maybe he'd be familiar with the job. He seemed to be a real durable guy when he was with the Rangers, taking the ball, not wanting to give it up, just pitching and pitching and pitching. It's not like he throws a bunch of weird breaking stuff. He's mostly fastballs. He was 80% fastball with the Rangers. Now, does the fastball still have the effectiveness, the giddy up on it that it had back then? Probably not, but maybe if he's healthier, then maybe it does jump back up. So it's an interesting thought. And when he realizes where he is in his career,
37, yeah,
he's not young. He realizes where he is, and and then hey, if it's a disaster, make him a starter,
right? Yeah,
I mean, let him go back to starting
and put John Gray in the damn bullpen.
Yeah. Well, and then another one that's been pointed out. Because he was DFA'd yesterday, is Ryan Brazier from the Dodgers, who have just this abundance of bullpen wealth that they can let a guy like this go.
Yeah, they had to DFA somebody.
He's only making 4.5. I don't know if he would, I don't know if he'll clear. I'm guessing that a team would want him, especially at that price, though he had some injury issues the last 2 years. But if he were to clear and make it to the Rangers, the Dodgers would be on the hook for that salary.
That's right.
And then they'd only have to pay him, the Rangers, the league minimum.
Yep.
So hey, that's probably a heck of an opportunity. Kendall Graveman's kind of a guy, Benny pointed out, that I've kind of been on since the start of the year. A rebound guy from injury, a guy who, if you remember him pitching for the Mariners, and you want to go back that far, was outstanding. It earned him a deal with the White Sox, and he was pretty good with the White Sox until the injuries popped up. So, shoot, there are guys out there. There are names out there, and we've mentioned them all. Kimbrel, Jansen, Graveman, Lynn, Brazier,
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. But at this point, my money's on Chris Martin being the closer at this point.
Yeah. I would think so too, which, then it's a battle to see who's the 8th inning guy. Last year it just worked so well for the Rangers to have kind of a set, and it does for a lot of teams, to have kind of a set 8th and 9th inning guy. And in fact, I think in the best case scenario, you've got a 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy.
Yeah, and that's generally how Rangers teams have operated in the past, and I guess all teams have too.
Yeah.
You get your starter in a perfect scenario, your starter goes 6, pitches into the 7th. I mean, these days a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
And then you go 1, 2, 3, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Last year ideally it would have been Spores, Robertson, Yates or Leclerc, Robertson, Yates, however it was, that would have been the plan. And you can go back and think of all these Rangers teams and how they set it up, and that's how Mike Maddox likes to operate. And these guys, if you just limit them to an inning, that means they're available the next day in most cases. So it's not a bad way to go. But to have those 3 set guys, it is a luxury.
Yeah, it's a certainty, no doubt about that, and it's something that is a luxury for a manager. More coming up as we continue to talk through this day in baseball. Another former Rangers pitcher has signed, and we'll talk about that and ask if the Rangers missed out next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. But first, Ice Shaker. These things are beautiful. You can get them in your team colors. And this is obviously one that's in the Cowboys team colors, and it's a great workout, thing. It's metal, not plastic, so it doesn't absorb all of the smells and all the nutrients that come from your protein shake. And it's got this agitator right here, and it doesn't make noise. It doesn't sound like a paint can when you shake it at the gym or anything like that. And it's invented by, and they've already sold over 1 million of these, invented by the Gronkowski brothers, which we were wondering, who's Rob's brother? Mm-hmm. He's got 4.
Oh, Jesus.
There's Gordy, there's Dan, there's Chris. I don't know who all. He's got 4 brothers, and they're all in on it. And I don't blame him.
All right.
Yeah, I'd ride Rob Gronkowski's coattails too if I could. Anyway, I think it's a great product, and you can get 25% off if you use the code DLLS20. I'm sorry, you got to use the code ALLCITY at 25 to get your 25% off.
Speaking of shaker, I'm getting the shakes because I haven't done sleeper all week.
Yeah,
it's kind of strange. So anyway, not that I'm addicted, but I do really really like it. It's fun to do daily picks. It adds to your enjoyment of the game you're watching, games you're following. I'm really learning a lot about the NBA with these foreigners that I've never heard of, or guys that stay in college and then disappear after 1 year. That was the great thing about the NBA in the 80s and 90s is that these guys stayed for 4 years. So you got to know them. It's like, hey, you remembered, the draft. Shoot, I've heard of this guy. Yeah, for sure. They were getting a good player over there in Denver or whatever. Oh, yeah, Todd Lichty, heck of a player. Woof. Anyway, I love Sleeper. You will too, especially because they give you a $100 deposit on your first match of up to $100. Use the code DLS Rangers today.
Yep, we like Sleeper, and we like you sitting there chatting with us and letting us know what you think about the program. The next topic we want to discuss is the fact that Max Scherzer has finally signed $15.5 million, 1-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the first time we brought this up way back in probably October, and we're discussing, do the Rangers bring Scherzer back? I'm like, I don't know. Is he even willing to pitch for $15 million a year? I mean, he was at 43 last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, the Rangers were on the hook for I think 22 of
that. Yeah. The Mets paid most of it.
Yeah,
but he was at 43 last year, and you're like, do you really want to keep going for basically a third of what you were making? But yeah, when a third is 15, actually a little more than a third, he got $500,000 more than I thought he would. 15.5 for 1 year with the Blue Jays.
I'm kind of the 0.5 I think has significance to Max because it's $500,000 more than Justin Verlander got. So I think now, I'm not. I think there's a little friendly rivalry between those two. So I think maybe Max did that intentionally. But anyway, he held a workout. So teams saw him pitch not all that long ago. The question is if they saw him the next day, because that seemed to be the issue with Max all of last season. What was it like the next day? Was he able to throw a ball? Did he have the nerve issue? I do think, though, that if you're just listening to him for the last 2 seasons and understanding how well he knows his body and how fit he is, I think that if anybody was going to find a solution to it to make it work, it would have been him. He just is smart that way. Also, at $15 million, I don't even know if at $15 million you expect a guy to make 30 starts these days.
No.
And so is he still effective? You look at the numbers, everything's down. I mean, he's going to be 41 in July. So yeah, the velocity's down and stuff like that, but he still gets out and he still gets a ton of swing and miss for the stuff he offers. So it's going to be interesting. You know, it's a division where it's generally hitter friendly. I mean, you know, Rogers Center itself, where he'll be pitching half his starts, is very pitcher friendly. Yankee Stadium, Fenway to right-handed hitters. The Orioles have moved the fences back in, in left field. I guess Tampa's the most neutral of them. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see.
Well, and Tampa's playing in a minor league park.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But
you know, this will enable him to have spring training in Florida, where he lives. You know, the Blue Jays train in Dunedin. I don't know that Max lives in Dunedin, but he's not going to be far from home. So hey, you know, I just think he feels like he needs to prove a point, that he needs to finish on a higher note, if you will, than he did last year, when back slowed him to start, then the nerve thing, and then everybody thought he'd be back, and he had a hamstring issue. So I don't think anybody wants to go out that way.
No, and he's not been a guy plagued by injury problems throughout his career. Pretty durable, pretty steady, and I think it really bugged him that his body was, you know, betraying him, for lack of a better word. And again, he's 40 at the time, so it's understandable and it's probably predictable. And yet, you look around at some of these other guys, and look, Max Scherzer took great care of himself, and we've talked about this before. When you talk to him, it was as if you were talking to some sort of kinesiologist, right? Or
right.
A scientist, a biologist who knew the inner workings of the body, and that was simply because he wanted to and felt like he needed to know why his body was doing what it was and how it was responding, those types of things. So he was absolutely taking as good a care of himself as he can, but at some point, it's such an unnatural move, right?
Right.
To throw a baseball
90
plus miles an hour, and at some point the body just revolts. Now, when the scouts saw him after his workout, you know, the general consensus was, looks like Max Scherzer, right? But with a caveat, it looked like Max Scherzer of recent years. It didn't look like Max Scherzer that was winning Cy Youngs, right? It's just, and there was a precipitous decline over, again, because of age. And so it's not like the Blue Jays have gotten a guy who's going to remind anybody of either Max Scherzer in Detroit or the Max Scherzer in Washington.
Sure. Yeah. Don't think he's going to win a Cy Young.
No.
But again, you know, just looking at the numbers, the last few years when he's pitched, it's been good. So good for him too. I mean, I like the guy.
Yeah.
He's great with the media. Has some wonderful ideas. Isn't afraid to share them. I hope the Toronto reporters have a lot of notepads and pens, because Max Scherzer can fill it up. But anyway, I don't know if he was ever an option for the Rangers. That's the other thing, you know.
Yeah,
I was thinking about, like,
I wondered if he even went to that.
I don't
workout.
think they went to the workout. I mean, I asked somebody, and they were like, "I don't know," which generally seems, you probably you should know. So if you don't know, then they probably didn't go.
Yeah.
And they have the most recent medicals. You know,
they do.
That's the thing. They have the most recent medicals, and they knew what they were getting into, and they just, you know, you can't count on a guy like that. Unfortunately, if you have aspirations of winning, and pay him what he thinks he commands. So it makes sense that he's not back with the Rangers. I wish we'd seen more of him. You know, this is one of the best pitchers, definitely the last 25 years of this century. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He won a World Series, albeit, you know, without the contributions that the Rangers thought they were getting when they got him for Luis Angel Acuna. But still, you know, it's nice when I look back at my career, I can say, oh yeah, I brushed shoulders with this guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame and remembered as one of the best pitchers of his generation.
Well, and to your point, that game, I think it was late 23, right? It wasn't last year. It was in 23, when it was Justin Verlander against Max Scherzer. Like, I was not, working. Had been laid off, so I was pretty much on hiatus at that point. I went to the ballpark that day, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I want to see this. I
Right.
mean, and I think they both got rocked, didn't they?
Yeah,
I know
Max
did.
was hurt. He had having an elbow deal, and I think he went on the injured list after that, or maybe it was the next start after Toronto. He went on the injured list because his last start of the year, I think, was like 5 2/3 scoreless, and he had to leave it because he felt something.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
But he was pitching well. But yeah, those matchups frequently don't live up to the hype, unfortunately. But
no,
to see these two guys still pitching, it's kind of maybe it's a credit to the 5-man rotation. You know?
Yeah.
But you gotta have the desire to compete, and Max Scherzer still wants to compete. He still gets fired up for his starts, dials in. Nobody approaches him the day of his starts. That kind of like focus and dedication, and because they both made a ton of money. They've got nothing left to do in this game.
No.
So this is
they both have World Series.
They were both hurt last year too.
Yeah.
So this is them trying to go out on a higher note.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's an interesting development that a name this big finally signs. There's, somewhat surprising to me as we still look at the landscape of the big names that are still out there, mostly Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso, right? That neither one of them at this point, like you say, February's tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
And yet neither one of them have, it seems like, earlier in the week we were hearing that the Astros were getting closer to Bregman, but now we're hearing that the talks have stalled and, he's back, and it's not him, his people are back negotiating with the Tigers and the Red Sox. So
yeah, I saw something. I scrolled the Twitter this morning and saw Tigers, Red Sox, Astros. And Bob Nightingale speculated the Blue Jays because it seems like the Blue Jays are in on everybody.
True.
There's a report that there's a 6-year offer out there that's very lucrative. Scott Boras is his agent, so it might be a very timely leak from that camp to say that, just maybe to get the Astros to bump up their offer, because I think Bregman wants to be in Houston. It's always nice to be a legacy player and finish your career with one team on the back of your baseball card, which doesn't happen very often. But he's also 30. I would have thought a short-term deal would have worked for him. Maybe, hit free agency again a little later. He hasn't been a great player here the last few years. He's been good. You don't want to face him in a tight spot, but he's had the one terrific year. And then kind of some injury problems the last couple of years. Great at bats, though. He really does give you a good at bat, and he plays a pretty good third base. So, but is he worth what he thinks he is? Probably not. So that's why, honestly, he's all the way back to the first deal he received this offseason from the Astros, and it definitely wasn't what he wanted. It's less per year than he made last year.
Wow.
Overall, he signed a 5-year, $100 million extension 5 years ago, and it was backloaded. He got like a signing bonus and made 10 or 11 million the first couple of years, but the last 2 years he's made 28.5.
Okay.
So the average annual salary of what he's been offered is not 28.5, and I don't know if that's sitting very well with him. But who knows? The Pete Alonso thing remains kind of, I don't want to say a mystery, but kind of a mystery.
Yeah, it's mysterious.
Although, really, when you look at it, how many teams need a first baseman that can afford a first baseman? Well, it's a pretty small group. So I think that still ends up with the Mets. But, like if he's with the Blue Jays, is I guess Vlad's your third baseman for a year maybe? Because the whole Vladdy thing. So are you signing his replacement, Guerrero's replacement, in Pete Alonso? Not sure.
Yeah, I don't know, and how would that work with team chemistry too? That could be a bomb dropped in the middle of the clubhouse at the beginning of the season, which isn't necessarily a good thing to have happen when you're trying, as they are, to load things up and make a good run at it. I do wonder about the Blue Jays a lot because I think one of the things that derailed them in the Sasaki thing is, and this is what, and Scherzer looked at this. I mean, I saw that Scherzer was looking at this, but are you serious? You know, Scherzer doesn't want to just pitch. He wants to go somewhere to pitch and have a chance.
Right.
He determined that the Blue Jays do. I think Sasaki kind of determined that I'm not sure they know where they're going, and there is some uncertainty in their front office and that type of thing too. So they've got a lot of things to solve. There's still a few big names out there, and anyway, that's the talk about that. We've got a big birthday to celebrate next, and that birthday comes fraught with tons and tons of memories from both of us. It's Nolan Ryan's birthday, and we talk about Big Tex next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Rugged Road, as the sun shines, it's a little windy out there today, but over the weekend and into next Monday, it's going to be like in the high 70s. And so it's time to start really getting serious about what you're going to do to keep your drinks cold all summer long. The best option that we have found is this Rugged Road cooler. The construction is the thing that impresses me most. The hardware that's on there is so easy to use. It doesn't stick. It doesn't get corroded and things like that. And it's a lightweight cooler. It's a great looking cooler. You can see it right there on the screen. And it floats. It floats upright. So you could float the river this summer if you were going to do that with it, or just sit it in the pool next to you when you're on your float device in the pool, and you got a cooler full of cold drinks, whichever they may be. So anyway, ruggedroad.com, code DLLS, you get 10% off.
And I've decided, John, that since FOCO is our partner, pretty good partner, been with us since day one, helped us design the sets with some of the things you can get at foco.com. I'm going to come up with a FOCO item of the day. Okay. So today's item of the day from foco.com is the Texas Rangers Traveler Backpack. It's time to put the team on your back, literally. How about that? The Texas Rangers Traveler Backpack has plenty of storage space and 5 exterior full zip pockets to store all of your legendary team spirit. You can get a laptop in there. That's all that I care about. Can I get a laptop in a backpack? And yes, you can with this Texas Rangers Traveler Backpack, available at foco.com. If you use the code DLLS, you get 10% off. And we thank FOCO so much for their support, again, helping with the set, giving John some overall ideas, and looking forward to seeing those still, John.
Yep, we are. We're going to make that happen. As we say happy birthday again to Big Tex Nolan Ryan, 78 years old today. And in my very first spring training, Jeff, in 1990, it was I can't remember if it was a strike or a lockout, but it didn't start on time, whichever it was. And so we hurriedly, the thing settled, and hurriedly, I was at Channel 5 at the time, we had to get down to Port Charlotte, Florida. And it was amazing for me to see what Nolan Ryan, first of all, went through day in and day out on the field. Second of all, how he handled himself with the media. And third, perhaps best of all, how he handled himself with the fans. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. There was a back gate area, a gated-in area where people like Nolan, at least, were able to park, and like the clubhouse people and that parked back there. There was a basketball hoop back there and that kind of thing. But fans knew if they lined up out near the big gate where Nolan was going to bring his car out of there, he would sign autographs, and he would come out after a long workout. It'd be, the sun's setting. It's getting dark outside. Of course, it sets pretty early, especially in Florida that time of year. But sun's setting, and Nolan's out there, and he signed autographs for all comers. And at the time, I guess, what was he, 40 or 41 years old? And it was still amazing that he was in the game. He was like the only one then that was of that age. And
I guess it would have been 43 if he's 78. First 90.
That's a great point. So he's 43. Yeah. So, and nobody in those days pitched that long. And especially, they didn't pitch that long and pitch with that power. Right. And it was so amazing and cool for me to see this man at that stage of his career at such an early point in my career, too. I mean, I was just like, I was in awe of the guy.
Yeah. he was long retired by the time I got the beat. Of course, I remember the last two no hitters pretty well. But what I guess some of the things I remember about Nolan was was in the World Series in 2010 when he threw out the first pitch to Jim Sundberg, and it came in at 83 or 84 miles per hour, and Sonny was so surprised by it that he reacted to it. It split his pants, and so he was walking around with split pants. And then Nolan was whatever his title was, president of the Rangers, I guess. And we would, as media, especially at the winter meetings, we would talk to John Daniels, who would say nothing. That's just the way that JD did business, kind of like Chris Young. But then we'd run into Nolan in the lobby, and Nolan would say everything.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I don't know what the truth is behind the Nolan Ryan JD feud, if there is one, to what extent it goes. But I know for a fact that John Daniels did not like it when Nolan Ryan talked to the media as openly as he did. We loved it.
Yeah.
Great stories. But Nolan's a good guy. I've written a couple stories on him here the last few years for other outlets. For mine, and then I did a story on him recently for the TCU magazine, alumni magazine. He was an assistant coach, volunteer assistant coach for them, right out of retirement. His oldest son, Reed, at the time, had transferred to TCU. And so Nolan, didn't have anything else to do. So he wanted to go out and watch Reed play his games at TCU and Reese in high school. And so Nolan was a regular out there at the old shitty TCU baseball diamond. And the crowds were so bad one weekend against Texas that Lance Brown, the old coach, he said, well, Nolan, just come sit in the dugout. All right. We don't want you getting hounded and causing a stir and ruining your experience. So just come sit in the dugout and everything will be all right. Well, Nolan did so in street clothes. He's not a coach. So TCU ended up winning that series. That was my freshman year there. And I remember the series very, very clearly. They also introduced Billy Tubbs as the head basketball coach.
Oh, wow.
That weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so TCU wins the series. They end up winning the regular season conference title. But anyway, it pissed off Cliff Gustafson. And there's history between Cliff and the Ryans because that's where Reed started.
I got it. Okay.
And UT kept wanting to do they did a deal with Ryan versus Ryan. And Nolan didn't like the way it went down. I don't know if that's why Reed transferred or not. But anyway, so Cliff Gustafson filed a protest with the Southwest Conference for TCU having an illegal coach on the bench or somebody on the bench in street clothes who shouldn't have been there. And so TCU's response was, oh, yeah, he's a volunteer assistant coach. And so from then on out, Nolan became a volunteer assistant. He would wear some sort of TCU gear in the dugout. And then he became full on like their pitching coach.
Yeah.
And was designing individual throwing programs for kids.
Amazing. Wearing
a uniform out there. The youngest son, Reese, ended up coming to TCU too, a lefty. And so that's kind of how that was hatched. So it was pretty fun catching up with the boys and then with Nolan also about that story. And some pretty, I want you to read DLS and be a diehard, which we'll get to in a minute. But if you have any curiosity about that, make your way over to magazine.tcu.edu and you can find the story.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it's so it's so typical of Nolan, who's family first, really.
Right.
I mean, he wanted to be there with Reed and with Reese, and of course Wendy is the daughter too, and he's still very involved and very close in all their lives. All he really deals with now is the grandkids and so forth. So Nolan,
and they're all old. They're like all in college.
Oh yeah, they're in college.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
or out of college.
But Nolan's time here was just so special with the 5,000th strikeout and the 300th win, and of course the 2 no-hitters. And on the 6th no-hitter, I was tooling around the DFW area that night. They were in Oakland, and I get a call from the producer at Channel 5 that says, "We've got you a flight booked. Nolan's got a no-hitter going. You're going." I'm like, what am I going to do? And they're like, well, you're going to be there for tomorrow morning because they have a day game, and so you can get interviews with Nolan for our noon newscast. What if somebody gets a hit in the ninth? Doesn't matter. You're going. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know? And I went and did it and did interviews. I mean, that was great in those days. Nolan Ryan came out to do live interviews with us on the field the day after his no-hitter. And so, you know, that one was awesome. And then his seventh no-hitter was it was the same day as one of the Byron Nelson rounds of the tournament. So we were all out back when they did it at TPC all day in the sun covering golf.
Yeah.
And I got home and, you know, my wife's there and we didn't, no kids yet or anything. We're pulling out of the driveway to go out, get something to eat for dinner. And I hear Mark Holtz, the great Mark Holtz on the radio say, and through 6 innings, the Blue Jays have no hits off Nolan Ryan. And I put it in drive. I said, sorry, honey, you got to get out. I got to go to the ballpark. So I went to the ballpark and covered that one. And, you know, we all the media, we ran out onto the field and stuff when they were celebrating. But my lasting memory of that one is once we got into the clubhouse, there's Nolan on an exercise bike, basically working out the lactic acid in his legs and stuff, on an exercise bike, talking about doing his interview. You know, we all gathered around him in there to get the official interview afterwards, drinking a beer. I just thought it was the greatest thing. Nolan's got a Miller Lite on the exercise bike as he talks about his 7th no-hitter. I mean, he was just such a joy to cover. You know?
And I, you know, still enjoy running into him when the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you mentioned Jim Sundberg. So Sonny told me when they were both in the front office and pretty active, there was one time that it was trade deadline time, and Nolan was noticing. And again, at this point, JD's all of 29 or 30 or maybe 31.
Yeah, probably right around 30. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of young people in there, and it's their first or second or third trade deadline, and they're just stressed. You can cut the stress in the room with a knife. And Nolan told Sonny, go out and get me a fart machine. And so Sonny did, and he had him put it under somebody's chair, and they never told me who, had to put it under somebody's chair. And so then when it's all tense and everything, and all of a sudden the big noise from the fart machine and the room broke up, and it cut the tension, and they felt, and that's really, I mean, in a way that encapsulates the kind of boss that Nolan became when he was the president of the team.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who worked for him loved him because he was this wonderful mix of a great businessman, but just this sort of natural leader, right? When it's a tense room and we need some levity, let's do it. Let's figure out a way to bring some levity to a room.
Yeah, and the holiday parties, they weren't like crazy get drunk things, but they were a pretty big event.
Yeah.
Nolan made sure that the Christmas party for all employees was special, and he just remembered those things. He and ultimately he probably did have his hands in too many pots. He didn't need to be deciding the color of the uniforms or the font of the tee or things like that. But he brought credibility to the franchise at a time when it really needed it. They'd had some disastrous free agent signings. They had a kid in John Daniels who was trying to run the franchise, and Nolan Ryan just brought instant credibility. He kind of changed the attitude of the pitching staff, and I think there is a misconception that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, Nolan Ryan was responsible for all these signings, and Nolan wasn't on the phone with Scott Boras at 1 in the morning. All right. Nolan was the one who signed off. He let John Daniels do his job. And, if you look at it, it worked out for a few seasons. John Daniels had some really good years in there. And he was the one who traded for Cliff Lee. It wasn't Nolan Ryan. So anyway, but again, what he's done for the franchise, it gave him credibility twice. When he signed initially with them, leaving the Astros, and every season he was with the Rangers as a pitcher, and then again when he came back, kind of at a low point with the franchise. They were coming off the 2007 season, entering this rebuild. and it turned around pretty quick. And I think that Ron Washington can thank Nolan Ryan for the longevity that he had as Rangers manager, because 2007 didn't go well. Wash rubbed some veterans the wrong way. 2008, my first year, started out terribly, and Wash's birthday is in late April, and they came back from a road trip that ended in Detroit, and it was a disaster. And Wash and JD were gonna have breakfast that morning at the Cracker Barrel on his birthday, and everybody thought that Ron Washington was getting fired, and he did not get fired. And Nolan Ryan stuck with him, didn't fire him after 2008, and next thing you know, until Bruce Bochy came along, Ron Washington was the most successful, taking the Rangers somewhere they'd never gone before.
Yep, twice, no doubt about it, and one strike away twice from that ultimate prize. So they finally got that in 2023. So yeah, lots to thank Nolan Ryan for. Most importantly, credibility and levity. More coming up as we get to our cleanup segment. It's a fun one. We've got lots to talk about in that one. As usual, that's next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. But first, the Die Hard. Look, I'm wearing, it says Die Hard.
Oh,
I got my Die Hard shirt on, and I'd like you to be a Die Hard. Jeff mentioned it earlier. The whole thing of all the content that he provides, that Clarence Hill provides for the Cowboys, and Joseph Hoyt, and we've got Sam Nessler on the Stars beat and also on the show with Tequila here, and we've got Mark Stein. We've got him, and maybe he'll have tequila every once in a while too. I know Luds
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and we've got Mark Stein and Tim Cato writing for the Mavs. We've got a lot of really good content. It's available behind the paywall, and it's not much to pay. $79.99 gets you that subscription to be a diehard, and you get a free shirt out of the deal. So for $79.99 minus $35 that you would pay for the shirt, you're looking at around $45 to be a diehard.
We're giving it to you.
Yeah, we're basically giving it away. So we encourage you to do that. Become a diehard and get that free shirt today.
Yeah, John's wearing the Die Hard. This shirt that I have on, this sweet-ass shirt, is actually a Mavs flag shirt. The Rangers flag shirt is the red flag and red lettering. Anyway, again, I have 13 of the shirts, 2 sweatshirts, and I have a non-DLS shirt.
Oh, what do you have, a DNVR?
I do. I have a Bo Nix shirt that was a gift for Christmas. My son received a Travis Hunter shirt put out by the DNVR people. So good stuff, good products. They're comfortable, fit right. You don't have to worry about sizing because they fit true to form. I just think they're so soft.
Yeah,
that's the thing I love about them the most. And as I pack my bag for spring training, I'm looking forward to packing a variety of DLLS shirts. We're going to wear it loud and wear it proud out there and surprise and get some folks on board. So join us today. Go to store.allcitynetwork.com.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it if you'd do that. Big news in our batting cleanup segment about another former Ranger who overlapped with Nolan Ryan, not as a player, but a guy who overlapped with Nolan when he was president, and that is Neftali Feliz.
Neftali Feliz.
How about Neftali Feliz getting an opportunity?
Yeah.
He's an NRI, which is a non-roster invite, but he's an NRI in the Seattle Mariners organization.
Yes.
He's going to spring training. It'll be just down the road from Surprise in Peoria,
100%,
Arizona.
yeah.
And he's got a chance, obviously he's got a chance to make the Mariners.
He does. It's pretty cool. He has been pitching a lot in
Mexico, right? Yeah.
And in the Dominican in the off season.
Okay.
He won the Rookie of the Year 15 years ago. He broke through. He was part of the Teixeira trade that brought the Rangers such a wealth of talent with him and Elvis Andrus, Matt Harrison, Jared Saltalamacchia, and Bo Jones, who didn't pan out, but the other 4 reached the majors. And I think they were all All-Stars. Saltalamacchia was an All-Star with another team.
Yeah.
So anyway, good to see him back. I always liked him. He of course was the guy who gave it up in Game 6 of the 2011 World Series and was really distraught about it. That's why he didn't go back out after Rangers retook the lead in the 10th. he blew out the next year trying to start. And maybe he didn't work as hard. He was young. He was immature at the time. Maybe an older Neftali Feliz, the Neftali Feliz 15 years ago would go talk to young Neftali Feliz and say, hey, take care of yourself. You've got a gift on attached to your body in your right arm, and you can pitch for a long, long time and make a lot of money if you just stay a closer. So anyway, good. And I look forward to seeing him too. I really do. I hope we run into him out there in Peoria. Surprise, wherever they play. Hopefully we get a chance to see him.
Yeah, it's one of those things too with a guy like Feliz where it came so quickly and so easily. Remember, he was Rookie of the Year in 2010, and sort of success at the big league level came so quickly and so easily for him. In part because of that right gift, his right arm that Jeff was talking about. And he had that, that movement on the fastball. And it was what they call nasty, Jeff.
Yeah.
It was nasty.
Yeah.
And it baffled hitters.
And the slider was good.
The slider was good too. And so he was, maybe a victim of that in a way, right? Like, it's like, oh, this stuff's easy for me. I don't have to work that hard, and it's tough for young people to realize that something like the hard work that's going to be necessary in order to sustain this is. But I also agree with you in that if he hadn't dabbled in the starting thing, let's see how different the career might have gone.
Yeah, ultimately the Rangers could have told him no.
Sure.
But he at least thought he wanted to start.
Yeah.
His agent wanted him to start because that was where the big money was. You got this young hotshot, and he's going to be a great starter, and he probably would have been. But it had a domino effect because he was okay as a starter, and then he got hurt, and then that was took a chunk out of the Rangers' starting depth. Then Colby Lewis got hurt coming out of the All-Star break. And no matter who they put in that spot, that turn in the rotation did not win a game the rest of the season.
Wow.
And that was in 12. And they ended up obviously missing out the playoffs because they lost the tiebreaker on the last day of the season to the A's. So if just one of those turns had turned into a W, the Rangers would win the division for the third straight year. And everybody thought that Rangers team was fantastic.
Yeah, everybody thought that was better than the 11 team.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one of the things in that season that just ultimately bit him in the ass.
It really did. Let's say happy birthday to Ernie Banks and Jackie Robinson as well. And while we're here, we mentioned it's Nolan's birthday too. And I forgot to show this, John, in the lab. But look at this. This is in the Hall of Fame. Speed checked by radar with the baseballs on there. That's from 1974. And, of course, the first ball, if you can't see it, the first ball is Nolan's signature. The second one says 100.9, which in those days, I mean, throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour was unheard of. The third one, I think, is a sponsorship of some sort. and then the last one is the date. In 1974, but I think that's such a cool sign and a way for Twitter today and the Hall of Fame to celebrate Nolan's birthday. But if I had a chance to have another child, which I don't, so maybe I'm rooting for the grandchild now. Maybe if I can get a boy grandchild born on this date, man, there's some pretty good baseball bloodlines on this date.
There are. Another big one is April 14th. Greg Maddux and Pete Rose.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's some days like this.
Days to shoot for.
Yeah. It's crazy though.
Yeah.
3 Hall of Famers on this day.
On this very day. So Ernie Banks and Jackie Robinson too. We mentioned the Lance Lynn thing that he's interested in possibly being a reliever, and we would be on board big time if the Rangers decided to maybe try and do something with that. And then there is this whole Caribbean series. The Caribbean World Series is coming up. Now, we told you about it the other day and how it's a little bit strange this year in that Japan, which is nowhere near the Caribbean Sea, is in the Caribbean World Series. But the normal participants are in there. which is, Venezuela and Mexico and the Dominican Republic and
Puerto Rico will
Puerto
have a club.
Rico and
do they let Cuba play in that
Cuba,
now?
I think.
don't know.
Yeah, is the fifth one. In any event, Japan is in there too. The Dominican has won by far the most of these Caribbean World Series. They've won 22. I think the next closest is 16, which would be Puerto Rico. The Venezuela team has only won it 8 times, but one of those 8 was last year, and we've got audio of the final out of that last of them winning their first World Series, Caribbean World Series in a long time. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
He's 2 for 3 in the game, trying to keep it alive. Ground ball to second base. Escobar to first. That's it. In the return of the historic tournament to Miami in the United States, Venezuela wins the 2024 Caribbean Series.
There was an unbelievable celebration on the field that day, in the dugout, in the stands. I mean, it was awesome to see. And this year, the games of the Caribbean World Series are going to be available on MLB Network. There you see the schedule that's upcoming. It's in Mexicali, Mexico this year, Jeff.
Okay.
And, the drama that unfolds in this series is one of the reasons that MLB has decided we need to pick this up. Because, look, first of all, many of us, you guys too, are jonesing for baseball. And you get to see really good, really high-level baseball being played. You get to see former major leaguers in this thing, including a rookie manager for the team that won the Dominican league, the Dominican series, and that would be Albert Pujols.
I've heard of him.
Heard of him?
Yeah. Benji Gill is the manager for Mexico. Yep. That team has some guys you've heard of. Billy Hamilton.
Wow.
The speedy Billy Hamilton, still trying to get a job. It's just fun. It really is. There's nothing but fun stuff with baseball, and just that sound bite doesn't really do it justice.
No.
We showed the non-walk off, the go-ahead home run the other day, and how crazy the players went, how crazy the crowd was. But yeah, you can go look at all these rosters, and you're going to know a lot of names. These are guys that either just did it, or guys who are currently doing it. Johnny Cueto is on the Dominican roster. He flirted with the Rangers last year, and Robinson Cano is on that team. Okay, we've heard of Robinson Cano. Junior Lake, who's made a living internationally after not doing so good in the United States. So just a lot of guys, and check it out. Do watch it. It'll get your blood going.
So next week we are basically in the final week before we begin sojourns to Surprise, Arizona, of which there will be a few during the course of the spring training duration. But we intend to bring some guests in here to get us ready for spring training. So we're working on a couple of different avenues of bringing people in here next week. But it is the home stretch before, again, I know the beginning of spring training, Jeff, is the unofficial beginning of the baseball season. And it is always strange to me because often I go for the first, right when pitchers and catchers report. Mm-hmm. And then I, was only usually there for a week and gone. And I'm like, man, I was so excited about baseball, and now it seems like forever until it starts again. But but it gets here quickly. And when you go for the whole time, as we both have, it somehow goes by quickly.
Yeah, there's always a lull there, right?
Yeah.
Right after minor league camp opens. But I love it. It's it was a trip that the Wilsons took as a family from Colorado before the Rockies existed. So I have a long relationship with spring training, and it's my favorite time of the year. It really is.
Monday through Friday at noon next week, as we get ready for spring training, we'll have some guests in here with us, too. Those shows are always fun for us, and I know they're fun for you. Thanks for watching each and every day this week, and we'll see you again next week on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.